Yeah, let me pull it up.
What should I type in to see where's this stream on YouTube? Okay. Well,
Sounds
it was
just
more
like
like I was
the
curious
game
to see
audio.
what it was like.
Yeah, I was noticing too that it was cutting out. Only the
You've
stream
been
is
cutting
out.
out in VR, or at least on my end.
Oh, I've been hearing you just fine,
Okay,
I
that's probably
think.
just my end then.
Oh,
Probably
yes,
just
I've
my
heard
end.
everything crystal clear so far.
Yeah, it's only the stream that has no audio. Sorry.
time you even remember it just a little bit, you're like, oh yeah. Can I see a nod of heads if that like feels good or appealing? Now, for some people, you might never have been around mindfulness or meditation, and you're like, what the hell is he talking about? And I think it's really important to remember, even for those of you who already get it, that the amount in which you can get being able to change your state of mind is even bigger. So as I describe it for people who are new to it, I want you to imagine leveling up 10, 20, 50 fold. Okay, so if you're like, what's he talking about? Has everybody had the experience? Maybe you were frustrated or angry or hurt or something, and then you just decide to stop and you take a really deep breath and just intentionally chill out. Can I see a wave or a head nod of who's had that experience?
Yup.
Who's had the
I
experience?
think in that
Maybe.
same breath, though, I apologize. I think in that same breath sometimes I've had an issue where I confuse de-escalating a situation with trying to leave it, but at the same time, maybe something toxic that I normally otherwise would never kind of consider. I think it was more so a lack of judgment than
All right.
anything,
So
than more
that's
so kindness having strength.
Lemonwire, I want you to hold on to that idea. That's a more nuanced detail of how we navigate our mind. Right now, I'm just trying to go for the overall idea of where you can go with it. So hold that
You
question.
got it.
Cool. All right, so many of us have had the idea of, hey, I'm just going to stop. You take a deep breath. It captures all your focus for a few seconds. And then at the end of the breath, you feel more relaxed, more calm, more able to think clearly. Now, when we practice that feeling of thinking clearly or like calming our mind, we can get really good at it. It's like when I said before, like, blissful, infinite peace. Like, we can get into feelings that people never thought were possible. Similarly, maybe you've been in a conversation and the vibe wasn't great, but then you decided to have a hug, or you decided to remind each other, hey, we're really good friends, our friendship's more important. And just a shift has like totally changed the vibe. And so I would like you to give yourself a mental hug in every moment that you need it, and in every other moment. And so you're just swimming in safety and warmth and love. So that's kind of what I was going with. Now, I'm going to come to your question in just a second, Rainey. This idea that, hey, we can shift our state of mind, we can change how we feel, we can change how we focus. I just want you to all imagine for a little while what it might be if you got really good at that. Maybe take a really deep breath and relax into feeling really nice feelings. All right, so Lemon, I'm guessing Rainey's question's more about like the idea of it. I'm going to go with the more straightforward questions and then go into trickier and trickier ones as we can. So Rainey, what did you want to say?
Okay. Well, I just wanted to kind of chime in with an observation I've had. It's not a question.
Okay. If the observation adds to what I was saying, please jump in.
Right. I'm not sure if it directly correlates to what you said, but like for example, if you're under the influence of a strong emotion, anger, for example, if you have enough mindfulness, you can catch it, take a deep breath, and choose to not let yourself get engaged in it. But at the same time, there's this sort of attractive field. Like this emotion has this will of its own that it wants to subjugate on you, and So you actually want to feel angry. You're like, okay, I'm calm. Then you think, I should be angry. Like, I have a good reason to be angry. And like the anger just then tries to actualize itself.
It's a great observation. I see two parts to what you just said. One is just the attractiveness of it. That's that tug of war I was saying. Oh, I want to be angry. Oh, I want to be an enlightened being that brings peace and good vibes everywhere. Oh, but I want to be angry. Oh, I want to be able to respond awesomely that makes everyone more wise and has better conversations. Just drawing back and forth. But you also mentioned another thing. There are also justifications. Hey, I have a good reason to be angry.
Right.
So to me, there's the two things there. It's like there's this tug of war. Whichever one's stronger, or whichever one you like guide your attention into is the one that's going to win. And there's also the way we think about it. And what you were saying, similar to Lemon Wire, like, hey, if I just chill out when like someone's being horrible to me, shouldn't I be responding to this person? Like, don't I have a good reason to react intensely to them? I know that's not exactly the detail of what you said, Lemonway. It's similar. We'll come to your thing in a bit. So yeah, I would propose that even when someone's been horrible to you, there are more skillful ways to respond that will make your outcome even better. For example, you could very clearly say to the person what you think of what they just did. Or you could very clearly respond to what they've said. No matter what, I'm sure if from a clear mind you ask yourself, how can I respond that will get the results I want and be a good influence on that person? 99% of the time, you'll come up with a better response than letting the anger just throw some response out.
Okay.
So, you know, I grew up in a really rough neighborhood where there was fights all the time. And if someone comes at you, the response was to like get aggressive as well. And the aggression escalated. And so I meditated on my response to aggression was to just be like, hey, we all just want to have a good time. And it would always just end the fights and it would just be transformative. It made me feel like this guru, like power, but it also brought peace and good vibes to other people. Now that's a pretty extreme example. I hope none of you are in environments where there's violence. But similarly, the reason I like extreme examples is because, hey, if it works in something that seems so one way, then I guess I could imagine it working in many other situations as well. So Rennie, I invite you to think of some of the situations where you've been angry and let yourself try to imagine what are like really awesome, wise ways you could respond that would be great for you and good for them. And if you can think of some situations where you can't think of anything better than being angry, bring it up and then let's try and brainstorm.
Alright. I guess I have to put in some work then, you know? Kind of thinking the right solution through.
So yeah, we can definitely think of the solutions ahead of time. I imagined this like peace and love response in these violent situations. And training specific things is super powerful. Also, if your idea of your aware self is just like this super wise, clear, calm, creative self, when you step into that, you'll spontaneously come up with very good responses a lot of the time as well. So yeah, putting in the work with specific training and decisions is great. And also just creating yourself as this wise, chill, strong person that works in every situation, that's also great. All right, now before we go into lemon wire situation, which is where there was competing things, can I just get a wave? If there's anyone who, what I said so far, that like has a question about it, or like it doesn't, like can or how about I get a wave? Does everybody see what I mean? That like we can change our state of mind and we can be aware and we can be good. And all right, I see nods from some regulars. All right, well, all right. So lemon wire, how about you? Do you want to throw us your question again? And maybe having heard some of that, your question might have changed a little bit.
No, yeah, I apologize for not, I guess, opening up, but yeah, that did kind of explain a lot. And I guess, yeah, towards the end of a day, or I guess especially like a long week, I feel like I do put a lot of effort into the conversations I have. So I guess that's me kind of thinking the wrong way about it, almost like selfishly, where I know that that's not supposed to be the case, where I'm just kind of selfish with my time at that point, whereas maybe I'm just stretching myself too thin.
Oh, by the way, I just saw on the live stream that the audio is working. So a bunch of people on different platforms have said they're here, and great. So just letting us all
That's
know
pretty
we're all here.
terrifying.
Everyone on the live stream, welcome. So, Lemon Wire, how you choose
Can
to spend
confirm.
your time with other people and how much you invest in others. I can't really comment on that, but
Yeah, because
how
what if
you
it is like distorted too, you know? Like, what if I'm thinking too much on it, and then in reality I could do a lot more, you know? Like, it's just kind of a conundrum that feeds into itself in your own head, whereas that's why I guess I'm reaching out.
So there's many things I could say. One is, if you were to work on the feeling within yourself that you're at ease with everything, and you're saying the work of these conversations, if you just imagine you enjoyed conversations and you obviously enjoy conversations, but you enjoyed any kind of conversation, and you train yourself that you always use your time in a way that you love or that's really helpful for you, you could create an underlying state of mind that would kind of dissolve a lot of these issues. And if you were to like keep priming your subconscious with, hey, I know how I want to spend my time, and it's easy for me to choose what I want to focus on. If you keep telling yourself that, you'll train yourself to feel like that and think like that.
Yeah. That's kind of it right there, huh?
I'm glad you appreciate it. Some people feel like that is too simple an answer, but I think it's amazing to notice how we
No, yeah,
can
there's
just...
nuance and simplicity.
Yeah, exactly. We can choose how we want our mind to be, and if we focus on practicing on that, it's kind of like this wild superpower that, yeah, I almost always just turn to that. Like, are you training being exactly what you want? And which of your current attitudes or autopilots, see them as that? They're autopilot. They're just an old habit. What if, rather than like resolving within that set of habits, what if I just stepped out and asked myself, what do I want to be? And then practice that. And if it's not super clear what you want to be, meditate on the general idea of good vibes, feeling in control, using your time well, being a good influence on other people, spending time on your creativity, building your friends and your community in a way that's awesome, or whatever it is that's important to you. You meditate on being that kind of person, and it takes care of so many of the other things. So, people on the live stream, I just wanted to clarify that we started with the question of how do we remember to be mindful or aware? And what are some helpful insights and also helpful practices? So far we looked at practicing the mindsets that you want to have. So you've got them in advance. How is it to respond calmly into these sort of situations? Or every moment of every day, there's some way that you are, and you could practice how you want to be. How are you talking to these kind of people? How are you Monday morning at work? How are you when you're thinking about what you're going to have for dinner? How are you with your exercise each day? How are you in the way you feel when you walk down the street on a sunny day? How are you when you walk down the street on a cloudy day? There's so many aspects of you and life, and every one of them you can put your creativity in and make it happier, wiser, more beautiful, more energetic, less energetic. However you want, you can put your creativity in, put your imagination in, and you can train it. So, you asked about mindfulness and awareness. This is kind of retraining your autopilot. Now, to the actual question of like being more aware and more mindful, I said two things. So far I've said two things. One is practicing mindfulness meditation, and while you practice, really trying to watch every moment and watch what it is to notice and fully be present. You want to be present and be able to come to awareness every moment? Practice that. You know, there are people who say meditating, I kind of don't even want to say them because I think having less effective ideas in your mind makes your mind less effective. But yeah, when you hear people describe different kinds of meditation, ask yourself, well, what are they practicing there? And how could I practice it that would be more helpful for me? I went to a lot of different meditation schools, super open to try all the different styles, and some were actually harmful. I mean, maybe they would have been helpful to an untrained mind, but after I meditated a lot on awareness, coming back to each moment, some of these other ones just trained my mind to be like blurry and fuzzy and to think of itself as a monkey and like be a bit wild. And putting all that back and coming back to I'm training myself that I'm present and I'm aware and my consciousness is super powerful and super good, and practicing that got back into having those results. I'll guide a mindfulness meditation in a little bit where I'm going to emphasize noticing each moment, coming into the awareness and practicing being aware. Okay, so I've said two things so far. Training happiness, positivity, training your reaction to different scenarios. One thing. The second thing was practicing mindfulness meditation. Training yourself to be aware in each moment. Training yourself to be able to stop whatever has caught your attention and come back into awareness and being able to choose. And then the third thing that I said was if your image of an aware mind, if your idea of being present is awesome, is beautiful, then whenever you think of it, you're going to like dive into it more. And this isn't just about your idea of mindfulness or enlightenment. This happens all the time. You know, if there's a song and it's okay and someone mentions it, you'll be like, oh yeah. But if I mention a song that you've been really into and you love and you've been thinking about it a lot lately, if I just mention it, in your mind you're going to start being like do 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 do. So if you make wisdom or goodness like epic and great and like super present, the moment you think of it, you're going to be like, oh yeah, life is good, I'm powerful, I'm wise. And so the more you make your image of awareness great and compelling and enjoyable, the more that's going to win. So when there's a tug of war in your mind between some reaction and being mindful, the mindful one's going to win because you're just like, yeah, mindfulness is great. Bliss and enlightenment for all beings, heaven on earth. I love it.
Yeah.
So yeah, lemon
I
wire.
guess I come from like an entirely, just like how I guess some teachings you don't really need if you have the background, I guess. I've seen a fair share of violence, honestly, unfortunately, in my life, so I guess it's more so owl brain rather than monkey brain in terms of just maybe my awareness is a little too sharp on the nail's head for too short of a time. Like I need to learn to express myself with a lot more chill vibes, like you suggest.
And you might notice whenever I suggest stuff, I keep it very open. I don't want to say, hey, let's all just be blissful, chilled out beings. Like sometimes, if you do that, some people are going to be like, who is this dude? So in some environments, it's good to feel like sharp or confident and decisive. But then try and use the words that you think are going to be good stuff. So if you're in environments where there's people like that, if you're still in those environments, yeah, you imagining what would be an awesome character. What kind of person could come along that would make things better there? And you know that environment more than I do. So, or that specific environment. So you can come up with the stuff. If you prime your mind with that question, what would be an awesome personality here? Your imagination will figure that out.
I think about Batman a lot. He's cool, but I don't think Batman has the best coping strategies at times.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good point. Every role model, you should choose which parts do you take on and which parts are you careful of. Every set of philosophy, you choose which parts are helpful and which parts are either not helpful or could be made better. So yeah, I mean, if you were to cross Batman with Gandhi, would that be would that be the dude that you need?
I think more so to focus on the strengths that matter at the time, like his adaptability, like to remain adaptable. And I guess that's a good thing to be. I still think about to this day when you mentioned the spider's web and how that's like a good metaphor for life in general, to be ebbing and flowing, kind of like the elasticity of a web.
Mm.
Yet it
For people
still
who
retains that kind of attentiveness.
weren't here for that session, I was describing how I like to think of the mind. You know, I was saying you can transform this bit and transform that bit, and there's all these different bits of us, how you feel here and how you act there. I was saying sometimes I think of them as like a web. So a spider web, if you grab one part and pull it, the parts nearby will also stretch out. So if you take how you react to a certain situation and you make it really wise and good, you won't change just that part. The other parts that are kind of similar will also transform. Or if you train yourself to be very kind and compassionate, you'll probably also find yourself being more understanding to yourself in hard situations. It's like when we transform some things, the other parts of us that are related also transform.
I mean, he could go
And
on forever. It's such a good metaphor, honestly.
I'm going to do one more part to the metaphor and then try and come back to
I
adaptability.
apologize.
So, just now I was talking about grabbing one part of the web and changing it in another part of the web. I would also love every one of you to imagine yourself as an enlightened being, infinitely adaptable, instantly have peace and wisdom the moment you need, constantly. And so then you imagine your entire web, you're lifting the whole thing up into the sunlight. It's not just stretching one bit, it's like grabbing the whole thing and lifting it up.
Should we do that right now?
That is a great suggestion. So we're going to have a very quick little mini meditation. I invite everybody to get comfortable. Maybe some of you want to lie down.
Yeah, I was going to ask for that. Yeah, I prefer lying down.
Absolutely. For very long meditations, I would suggest sitting postures, or if that's not great for you, a standing posture, or maybe sitting in a chair. But for short meditations, lying down can be really nice. But why am I mentioning posture? Just for a little bit, I want us to let our minds and bodies relax and go into an awesome daydream, a powerful meditation. So, everybody here and on the live stream, let yourself get relaxed and just deciding that it's a couple of minutes to explore transforming your consciousness. As we step into the meditation, I invite you to take a very deep breath, fill up your lungs, and as we take a few more of these deep breaths, each time you breathe out, feel your body relaxing. And then for the next few deep breaths, feel your mind becoming calm or clear. That activity of your awareness just becoming more peaceful, or the tone of your voice, your inner thoughts, just feeling better, calmer. Now we'll practice just a minute of mindfulness and then a minute of practicing adaptability and positivity. So for the mindfulness, I want you to notice the breath coming in and out of your nose. And imagine that that has caught all of your attention. All that exists is the breathing in and out. Like you're out in space, in a little bubble of air, and the only thing that existed was just your breath. It's caught all your attention. And you watch it so beautifully. Every moment of the breath, just the flowing, it's just this constant, forever, soothing experience. And you may notice that this practice also allows you to notice if there's any other activity in the mind. So if you hear yourself thinking thoughts, let that part of your mind, the vocal part, Turn into the sound of the breath. If you see yourself imagining things, see the breath. See the air coming in and out of the nose. If you feel the body, feel the breath. Practice instantly and fully and completely, just bringing your whole self into the breath. And as you notice more subtle activities of your consciousness, be amazed by the beauty of your awareness. But every part that you notice, just instantly bring that part into the breath. Your whole self. Your whole self synchronized. Every part of you moving in time with the breath. If you notice any thoughts about meditation or about how you're meditating, also just bring them into the breath. Notice how you steer yourself more into the breath. Do you imagine the breath more powerfully? Do you relax into the breath more powerfully? Do you imagine being perfectly immersed in the breath? Do you watch your awareness and change it over to the breath to learn how to steer your consciousness? Every moment of the breath is a soothing, beautiful gift. And as we move into the next part of the meditation, we're going to start to practice a mind that is always adaptable, that envisages wonderful enlightenment, peace and ease. So for the last bit of the breathing meditation, just breathe. Breathe into feeling your mind fully empowered, wildly adaptable, powerfully and amazingly conscious. And then we shift gears into practicing not just your breathing meditation, but your whole life. Feel yourself as someone who's adaptable, who's empowered, who knows that they can shift where their attention goes, which transforms how they feel, transforms how they act. Imagine what it would feel like to have fully mastered your consciousness. And whether you then choose to be a Batman or a Gandhi or a Buddha, Christ-like, or you just choose to be adaptable and bring your best to every moment. Breathe into practicing, becoming, being. And imagine if every day you gave yourself some time stepping into this most awesome version of you. And every day it felt more beautiful, more easy, more inviting. And then you can wrap up the meditation. Just notice how you feel. Notice the state of mind you just practiced and cultivated. Remember how you noticed, how you guide your mind. Remember any insights or shifts in perspective you had. Remember what you practiced. Take some strong breaths and feel that you'll keep practicing that in ways that are better and better for you. And if you'd like, you could have a stretch, you could stretch a smile, or if you want to just stay still and keep internalizing the goodness. Just however you like, you can bring yourself from the meditation back into the temple. So we have some comments on a discussion from the viewers. So I'm going to read them, and then Aaron, I'll come to your question. So first, I just noticed that Lou V Fit is putting in the timestamps for when we do the recap and when we start the meditation. Thank you so much. That is so helpful, because afterwards I'll put that into the description of the video so people will be able to jump to each of the sections. So I really appreciate that. If anyone's ever watching on the live stream and you notice a transition from one topic to another or an exercise, please throw them in the discussion. That's just super great. And then Ekis, many of us know Ekis, he's one of our local superstars. He said he was watching a video earlier this week about mindfulness during Zazen meditation, and he found it really bizarre. In the middle of the meditation, the lead monk would hit people with a big stick. Have people ever seen that practice? Some people think that's really wild. But yeah, it's a thing that happens in some meditation schools. Anyone who doesn't really know meditation schools, it's very rare. It's not like most schools do it. It's a very niche school. But there are a few schools where that's a thing that happens. And so Eka said he assumed it was to assist people in avoiding the monkey brain, but it seemed a bit more extreme than what he was used to. And then Marley said she thinks it's a reminder to stay focused and be great. That's why she loves well-guided meditations, because she'd rather kindly being brought back to the awareness than someone to hit me with a stick. Marlies likes my meditation, so I think that's quite a compliment. So from what I've seen, the monks that hit people with a stick, it's if your posture starts to go or you start to be inattentive. It's like to wake yourself up. And a few times in meditations over the decades, I've mentioned this practice. I would never hit people with a stick, but metaphorically sometimes I've got people imagining that I've got this stick. And there's a few things that I think we can lightheartedly learn from. One is that when we're mindful, we choose to move through life in a way that's like blissful and kind and calm. And when we're not mindful, things can hurt. We can hurt ourselves, we can hurt others. And so if you think of the practice of enlightenment, any time that your mind kind of wanders, it's kind of causing suffering to the universe. So a quick whack with the stick to remind yourself, hey, unenlightenment hurts. You can kind of see that as a thing. I actually think we should be kind to our mind and guide ourselves in a way that's the most effective. And a mental whack with the stick when you get distracted is definitely not what I would have come up with. But like having that lightheartedly as one of your mental repertoire to remind yourself to come back into the breath, if you do it lightheartedly, and I can see that there's some use that could be for some people. Some people would think that any form of even reminding of violence is just totally unacceptable, and I honor and respect that. So yeah, I'm just giving people options. So then Eckes responded that he'd never seen that before. If when he was starting out, he might have needed a loud clap to help him from accidentally snoozing. So yeah, I guess that's what it's about, Eckes. It's that practice is just an intense way of people being reminded how important the practice is. And I think many of us can relate. You know, we can relate in this way. Many of us have heard about enlightenment, and it's amazing. We can be mindful and we can cultivate infinite bliss and compassion for everybody. But it can be easy to like life to get in the way, or for other stuff to catch our attention. And if you imagine a school of people, they want enlightenment for everybody, and they know how dire it is that the group becomes enlightened, how precious and powerful it is. Like having something that kind of like snaps people out of unenlightenment, I can see why someone was motivated for it. And so, while I definitely don't want you whacking yourself with a stick, or there's many spiritual and religious practices where there's some kind of self-suffering, and I've tried some of them, and I found them not helpful. So I definitely don't want to advocate for any of them. But the idea
I'm glad
of
we
that,
just use a bell.
yeah, absolutely. But the idea of some reason for the intensity of how good it is to be aware, I think the idea of that intensity, how important it is to train our mind, how wonderful it is to have a daily practice. Like the preciousness that comes when you take this practice and make it better and better every day, it's so important. So anything that can remind you of it, that can train you with that more, that can inspire you for that more, great. So not just with practices, but I also hope in every moment of our life. Back to your original question, what's some ideas for mindfulness? Every conversation, every time you see something said unmindfully, it can remind you how precious mindfulness is. Whether it's you saying it or someone else saying it. Everything that someone says, there's either a gem of wisdom in it or a gem of the opposite of wisdom that could remind you of wisdom. if you're always on the lookout to be a more wise, a more enlightened being, you're dedicated to everybody having awareness of themselves and choosing to live a wonderful life, every sensation can remind you into that more and more. Aaron, was that a question? Please.
Yeah. Yes, I have a question actually. So if I, for example, go outside right now and start just listening to the crickets and the wind and the trees moving, and just mindfully listening to it and paying attention, can that also consider meditating?
So meditating 100% yes. Anyone who tries to tell you meditation is this specific practice, that's just obviously not right, because there are people who meditate on singing, there are people who meditate on bells, there are people who meditate imagining dancing with pixies, there are people who meditate on their breath, there are people who meditate on being aware of what's around them, people who meditate on everything around them disappearing. As far as I've seen from going to all different practices, meditation is just doing something with your awareness. Sometimes for some outcome specifically, or sometimes just because kind of we think this practice is good. That's a very general definition. And definitely within that definition, I would say that there are some practices or some ways of doing the practices that I've found that are much more helpful and that I'd advocate for. But they're all meditation practices. And so then to my thoughts around sitting and listening to the leaves or the stream, that could definitely be a very good relaxation meditation, practicing peace and calm. It could also be a very good meditation for seeing beauty in nature and cherishing life more every moment. You could add to the practice of noticing each moment of the sounds. So it could also be a mindfulness meditation, noticing your awareness as it flows with it. So the subtlety in where you take your focus or how you do the practice, like what you practice is going to be what you're practicing. Thanks for the question. I actually want to go a little more fine-grained onto what I just said. If you're practicing mindfulness in each moment, you'll get some of that. If you're practicing yourself as a peaceful being, you'll get more of that. If you're practicing each moment is beautiful and I love the universe, you'll get more of that. But it's more fine-grained than that. If someone's sitting with the intention of, I love the universe, nature is beautiful, everybody imagine you're meditating on that. Nature is beautiful, I love the universe. Okay, and now, think of everybody in the room. Did you all think exactly the same thing? No. Everybody felt it slightly differently. Your ideas around it were differently. And so when you notice what you're actually doing with your awareness, you can then craft that what you're actually doing with the awareness to be more powerful or more aware or purely good. If you're sitting to meditate and I'm practicing awareness of each moment, and a part of me is thinking, what's my mind doing? Well, how's this going to be? Put all that aside for a little bit and be like, okay, I'm going to imagine that I'm really practicing my awareness and it's beautiful. Like, shape your own meditation. Meditate on your own meditation. Be the master of your own awareness. Alright, I'll let everybody just think if anyone has a question or a comment. I'm going to check the live stream. Cool. Anybody?
Yep, me.
Rainy, please.
I've got a question. You say it's beneficial for our lives, to establish mindfulness and like to go about our day just being mindful and trying to be in the present moment. But what happens to me is that it becomes this neurotic kind of obsession, Oh, I'm not focusing enough on the taste of the food I'm eating. Oh, I'm not feeling my feet against the floor, and I get really tense, and I get annoyed that I'm not being like as present as I'd like to be, and it becomes like more annoying than anything. Like I can't. It feels like I can't even move because I'm doing everything wrong since I'm not being mindful most of the time.
Thank you so much for sharing that and asking that question and keeping it real. I really appreciate that. And I'm sorry that sometimes that's your experience. So before I say my response, I'd like to ask you if you were going to create the attitude or the mindset around mindfulness that would most help you, what do you think it would be like?
If I were to create the mindset of could you repeat that, please?
Thanks. Yeah, I should have made that more clear. So the
Yeah,
attitude
my
to
attention
mindfulness,
spans, please. Yeah.
the attitude to life and practice, like what would be the way you'd like to be in all those different moments that you just said?
Hmm. Yeah, good question. Good question. I suppose I have to do some inner work.
What would come to mind just off the top of your head? Do you want it to be stressful and anxious?
Well, not really.
Yeah,
I prefer
I
to be
hope so.
yeah, blissed out. Yeah. But yeah, I haven't had too much success with that lately.
So, in terms of what we've been talking about so far about like practicing, I would invite you. Yes, you said you do some inner work to imagine how you want it to be, but there are some easy answers that you just said you want it to be blissed out. You
Yeah,
said there was like this pressure
that's
or
the
this
ideal.
yeah. So I would practice the attitude you have in each moment. You do enjoy the food, and you do feel your feet, and when you don't, cool. That's a reminder to do it more in a way that you love. And if you're busy and you don't have the attention span to do that right now, that's okay. Life is beautiful. You're just choosing to love the journey.
Mm, yeah,
Um,
I guess it's just a monkey mind.
so yeah, somewhere the idea that it has to be good enough or it should be a certain way has given you an expectation. And then when the reality not matching the expectation, it's causing you this suffering. And I don't know if you watched last week's class, it was all about expectations and about when we have expectations, they almost never match reality. And so pretty much any expectation is going to cause us suffering. So envisaging that your practice brings you ease and joy in the ways that it does, and that it's a nice thing and you like it, and spending a bit of time every morning just thinking, yeah, I'm gonna just gonna enjoy today, and these wise, beautiful, awesome things you learned, you're only going to use them in the ways that help you.
All right. I don't mean to be too inquisitive or like skeptical, but the thing is, when I try to like allow myself to relax and let go of thoughts and just neuroticism. It becomes this battle, you know. It becomes a battle, and it's daunting.
I love that you are asking these tougher questions because, you know, for some people, meditating's easy, or for some people, they've been with it for a long time and they're like, oh yeah, I found the way around it. But for a lot of people, knowing how to get through these hardships, that's what makes this practice awesome. So thank you for asking. I really mean that.
Sorry, you're cutting out. I can't hear you.
I was saying thank you for asking the tough questions, keeping it real for people.
Yeah, no problem.
Um,
I guess I just have to make your life a bit harder since you're the teacher and all, you know.
well,
No, I think that's important that you're reaching out. That would be the step that I would take if you're truly struggling and you feel that you've tried everything that you can. A lot of times we seek out the wisdom. Even here, I notice, I think it's so cool that the three of you, Neojex, Zenke, and Creek, all have your own perspectives, because I feel that by coming to each different session, I'm learning a new facet of, you know, mindfulness. But at the same time, I don't know, there's always more ways to look. If it's something that you're truly struggling with, I would look outward rather than inward, maybe. Because I feel like you've spent a lot of mindfulness on this already. Or not spent, but sorry if my words were not careful there.
invested.
Thank you.
I want to respond to the last thing you said about calming the mind, and then all this other stuff happens. Let me just ask if this is the case. Is that some people think meditation is you calm your mind and still, and you chill out in that stillness, and that's what you're supposed to be doing when you're meditating. And so you're trying to be still, and then your mind's not. Is that accurate? Yeah. Okay, so meditation isn't about just having a still mind. That's one of the great things you can practice and you can get to, and the peace is profoundly beautiful, but that's not the starting point. Some people, when they sit and they can imagine it and they're like, wow, that is great, and they spend a moment here and a moment there in it, and then the moments get more and more. But I want to be careful not to just say meditation is, because meditation can be all different kinds of things. But if you're doing the meditation that is on the path towards that mental stillness and awareness, remember that it's a practice. It's learning how to guide the mind.
Right.
So,
one time when I meditated, I cathartically wrote a poem after crying a bit.
So a couple of thoughts
I feel like
around.
that was part of the process. Sorry.
I feel that.
Similarly, there was one meditation I went to, and for some reason, for the entire 2 hours, my mind was just doing so much other stuff. I try and breathe. A couple seconds later, it was just wildly into some other thing. And this was in the midst of the chapter of my life where I was meditating for hours a day. For some reason, just in that moment, stuff was chaotic. And, you know, I could sit for hours in stillness, connect to the infinite bliss of the universe. For some reason, this time, it was just all chaos. But then I left the room, started walking down the street, and this wave of peace just came over me. And I just felt blissful for hours. And I've heard some monks describe it as if you imagine your mind is like a farm or a field, and sometimes the field is perfectly plowed and you're just planting in seeds of peace and love. And then sometimes you got to go and like dig up the soil and like smash up the rocks. And so that day, that's where my mind was at that time. And similarly, I've heard monks say that every meditation is a good meditation. No matter what your mind's doing, the fact that you are watching the mind and being aware of it is great. And so if you're sitting to meditate and you're expecting total peace, I invite you instead to just watch what your mind's doing right now. And maybe you have a millisecond here where it's more peaceful. And maybe you'll come and you'll breathe for a whole breath here. And then your mind will wander. And then you'll bring it back. And you're like, yeah, I brought it back. And oh, look, that's how I became aware. I mean, you can't really put it into words some of the time how you became aware, but you can see what your mind did. And then there's sometimes, whoa, wow, I'm really focused for a breath and a half. Oh, now I know how to come back into that really focused. Oh, I could do that more. I can make that peaceful moment a bit longer. And so if your practice is about watching the mind and learning how to guide it, then no matter what your mind's doing, it's an awesome meditation. And sometimes in a guided meditation, you might drop into more stillness. I try to create the space that's like super still and calm for everybody, because that gives people more chance to have more stillness. But you notice even in today's meditation, when I mentioned nothing but breath and pure stillness, I also mentioned notice other parts of your mind and be more aware and bring more of that into stillness. So just to reiterate, to re-emphasize, I want you to be kind to yourself no matter what your mind's doing and enjoy watching it. And if your mind's doing a lot of things and then you slow down your voice and you notice, wow, that made things more still there, great. Or you, at the start of the breath, you're like, for this breath, it's got my attention. And that caught your attention for 3/4 of a breath. Awesome. You just keep watching and keep steering, and then you'll have these moments of stillness, and then you'll have more of them, and you'll have more of them. And you just be kind to yourself as you enjoy becoming acquainted with your mind. One more thought, and then I'll come to your question, Shreximus. So, earlier today I was talking about the practice of mindfulness, and I also mentioned the practice of practicing how you want to feel, practicing how you want to act, practicing the attitudes that help you. I also invite, anytime you notice you're saying to yourself that like your mind, I don't remember the word you said, but something about your mind's really active. Anytime you see yourself thinking that, just tell yourself, okay, I'm going to practice something else. My mind is kind to me. I can guide my mind nicely. And when that attitude starts to sink in, you'll be better and better at that. All right, Rainey, do you want to ask anything or respond, or can we...
I'd like to, but I don't want to take too much of your time.
Shreximus,
sure
was
there's
this
other people
about...
with questions and...
Was this in response to what we were just talking about, or something else?
Kind of something else. Sorry, I didn't mean to click the button as soon as I did. I was
All right,
gonna
well-
wait till you asked if there were any more questions. Sorry.
Cool, we'll come back to you in a minute then. Rainey,
Sure thing.
it's super important that we help you feel what we're trying to convey. And it's not just for you, it's for so many people. So please be self-indulgent. Let's get to the point where you're like, yeah, I'm feeling that either I've got this or I've got really good stuff to practice next.
Okay,
So yeah,
so how do I put it? My mind is kind of messed up, and so since it's messed up, I'm trying to improve it. But what I'm trying to improve is the thing that needs improving. And thus, by doing these practices, these meditations, these values, I feel like I'm just forcing it and just doing the same thing. Like other things.
So
I think reframing the question was what you told me one time, NeoJax. To better suit, like, you know, our goals, and then to make it more sensible for ourselves to understand and digest. So maybe if the question seems unanswerable, we need to ask it differently.
do you mean, like, I feel like I had an answer, but are you saying Rainey could reframe the questions for himself until he finds like he's got a way of thinking about it that he can approach better?
Yeah, maybe, yeah, to bring it back to like back to the drawing board, perhaps. I don't know.
Okay, so
Well,
this
I suppose
helping.
Rainey, before we
put
do that,
differently, it's
can I
just,
respond to what you did
yeah.
say?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I didn't.
So you mentioned your mind's kind of messed up. So I want to just reiterate what I said in the previous answer of practicing the attitudes to yourself. So saying to yourself that, or imagining what it would be like that your mind feels good and it works well. And saying that to yourself each day and envisaging what it would be like. I think if you did that every day, you'd be amazed in a few weeks how your mind would have transformed.
Just by meditating, you say, or by being more compassionate towards yourself and not being so self-critical?
So both of those things are great, but what I actually said, saying to yourself, my mind works well. Like literally just saying it. My mind works easily. My mind is
I think
clear.
everything Rainey said today was quite eloquently put, quite honestly. I think your mind works amazingly, quite honestly.
Yeah, reminding
Thank
yourself
you,
of those
I have a lot of
compliments,
time
Rainey.
to think about this kind of existential dread, yeah.
Yeah, remember compliments like that. People that appreciate your mind. And
Yeah.
I can tell you there were things about myself that I definitely believed. And not just believed, but I kept thinking them and feeling them. They were real, not helpful things. And then I started just telling myself, I'm confident, I feel okay, my mind is kind to me. And every day I would say those things. And then after you say them a few times, you start to imagine what it's like. And as you imagine what that's like, what's it like to have a mind that this works all right for you? The more you imagine that and the more you say that, the more you'll train your inner self to be like that. And similarly, when you say to yourself, my mind's messed up, just notice, hey, well, actually, I don't want to practice that anymore. I'm going to practice that my mind is nice to me. That would probably be I also wanted to talk about mindfulness and practice, but I want to emphasize, I think that's the main thing I'm taking away from this thing is if you have an attitude that your mind is, what all the different things you said, anytime you notice yourself saying any of those things, Just say to yourself, like literally these words or your own sentence of like, hey, I'm not going to practice that anymore. I'm going to practice my mind is kind to me. My mind works well. I can use my mind really well.
But isn't that denying parts of yourself? Just like disowning parts of yourself?
So you could see it that way, but I want to tell you a story, and then let's try and relate the story to what's going on. So before I learnt about brain programming, I was super uncoordinated. When it was time to play sport, I'd like trip over. I was the most awkward person. I always got picked last. I'd like spill food on myself all the time. I was a total nerd. So like my body was messed up. And you know what? I was always telling myself I'm so uncoordinated. And yeah, some of the mean kids at school had said that enough times and like drilled that idea into my head. Sure, it came from somewhere. But yeah, I was telling myself that a lot. And you know, when it was time to like kick a football, was my mind imagining kicking it well? No. It was imagining I'm going to trip over and everybody's going to think I'm even more of a nerd. And so because I practiced that in the second up to kicking it, I didn't kick it very well. Sometimes I'd trip over and look like a fool. So I then started, once I learned what you practice is what you become, I decided I'm not going to practice that I'm uncoordinated anymore. It's not the real me. It's just some state that I've gotten into. And so I started imagining that I was good at sport and that I was aware of my body and could move it well, and that I would say to myself, I'm coordinated, I've got control, I feel great. And I'd practice that every day. And a couple of months later, it was wild how much I'd transformed. I was now good at sport. I felt great in my body. I was aware and suave. I didn't knock stuff over or drop things anymore. Or if I did, I'd catch them before they hit the ground. And you could ask yourself, well, was I denying the uncoordinated part of myself? I mean, I don't want to phrase it like that. I just practiced being who I chose. So the real me, I want to feel great in my body. So I chose to practice that. I'd like to hear your response to what I just said. Oh, perhaps he's taking
I think of a kaleidoscope. Yeah, he might have disconnected. But how a kaleidoscope's picture kind of comes in and out as you look at it through different lens, or a different light, rather. Because we're so complex. I guess that's why it's so hard to focus sometimes.
When I hear that, I think there are so many aspects to us, and often we'll have a story about ourselves and we kind of focus on that story when there's so many other parts to us and so many other feelings and so many other possibilities of who we could become. And if we stick to the story or the self-image that we have, we're like missing out on all those other possibilities.
Yeah, you find the selfless people too, they tend to latch on to the criticism, but they tend to also forgive and forget when it comes to some praise, or rather, they don't heed it much mind because they think, oh, I'd rather think about, something else that isn't praise for me.
It's a good point. When we're given compliments, does it get enough of our mind to encourage us and make us feel good.
Gratitude.
Yeah, and do we give gratitude enough attention? If you're spending time feeling gratitude, you'll notice more of the good things. And if you're spending time practicing feeling like you don't have enough or things aren't good, you'll notice more of that. And the same thing with compliments. If you remember compliments and put your attention on them, you'll feel better. And if you put your attention on insults, I mean, there's definitely a practice of if you're insulted, feeling super empowered of what can I learn from that? Boom, I'm going to practice now being great. Thank you for that feedback. But yeah, if you remember insults in a way that makes you feel bad, like, sure, that's going to make you feel more bad. And it's not just external, who said nice things or not nice things to me. It's what nice things have you said to yourself or not nice things have you said to yourself. So being aware what we put our attention on, it transforms your whole experience of your day, how you feel, what you're thinking about, what your whole experience is. All right, everyone, let's just take a couple deep breaths, let all that sink in or reset, and then Shreximus, you've got another question. Oh, Rainy, welcome back.
Me?
I think we lost you for a minute. I said welcome back. If you'd like to, you can watch the part of the conversation on the YouTube video.
I was still here.
Oh, okay, cool.
I didn't disconnect.
Cool. So, Shreximus.
Oh, hello. Sorry. So I'll make it quick. So I've gotten very good at kind of gritting my teeth and bearing things, but I've also gotten good at cultivating when I really get the time to meditate for tranquility. I've gotten better at that. But what I've really noticed through the practice I've been doing is, you know how people who begin to meditate will tell you, oh, I can't stop thinking about that. I was thinking about what I'm going to eat, and then I was thinking about, oh, should I be wearing this shirt, or then I was thinking about what am I going to do tomorrow. For me, it's kind of simplified over time, and I see almost everything as craving or aversion, craving or aversion, craving or aversion, and there's just a lot of it, and it's been tricky. I'm like, okay, I get it. This is craving and aversion. Everything is either that or just an experience that I don't attach to, and those tend to be things that I want to gravitate towards, but automatically I'll attach to certain things or be adverse to certain things, and so I get it. I see the attachment and aversion, and it's now like, well, how do I get it deeply enough that I no longer, or at least less often, I'll take that, less often attach or run away from things. So I guess that's a big one.
I want to do a little bit of background before I jump into the answer. So, in some meditation philosophies, they will label different reactions, and by, as Shreximus said, simplifying different things in the mind into these different labels, you get really good at a reaction to that kind of thing, and it can solve a whole category of stuff. Before, Rainy was saying this expectation that he'll enjoy the food right and he'll be aware of his feet. And I was saying, well, you've got this
It's not that. It's not expectation. It's more like I discipline myself. So like, if my mind goes elsewhere, no, look at the food, eat it, taste it, feel it down your stomach. Do that for like 20 seconds. Do it again, and it
I
feels
know
forced.
exactly what you're talking about because I had
Yeah.
I used to have OCD, and that's just part of the. So it's funny now, and it's now I would say, well, you're being adverse to what you're experiencing, thinking it's not enough, it's not good enough. When I think most likely you are feeling your feet as much as a person would feel their feet. But in your head, maybe there's a thought that I should be so feeling my feet that it would blow my mind. And I think you're doing great. I think you're doing great. And I had OCD for many years, like really severe, and I got through that. So I really understand that neurotic, like, it's not enough, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah. But like that, I would now label that I'm wanting or I'm not wanting, like everything else.
So
I think nourishment takes
Thanks,
all forms, especially when, like, considering food. Like, it's not just the food. I understand too. Like if you need to take a diet, then you need to literally cut down on your nourishment. But what helps me with that too is thinking of all sorts of different types of nourishment, like of the mind, of the soul, and self-kindness. That's a form of nourishment that, every person's entitled to.
I think I know a way to. I know I've been using a lot of terminology that not all schools of meditation use, so I think I know how I can make it simpler. So, let's say, so today I'm at the gym, right? I walk around and I look at other people and I see some other guy at the gym. Oh man, he's taller than me. Oh man, he's lifting more than me. And then I'll go to the store and I'll see, oh man, I want those donuts. No, I shouldn't have them. Or I'll go to sit down at my desk and I'll be like, it's too cold. I can't focus like this, or it's too loud, or it's too this, or it's too that. And what my style of meditation is kind of focused on is the awareness that wanting and not wanting, because both things are really interconnected, is where a lot of the struggles of our mind, pretty much all of the struggles of our mind and lives come from. It comes from, anytime you're feeling bad, at the root of that is you want something you don't have, or you don't want something that is there. And the truth is not that, if you had everything you wanted, then you'd be okay, because no matter how many times you get what you want, there's always something else, or there's something you don't like, or something goes away. The root is the wanting. That's the root of the problem. And so that's the kind of concept I'm going here. So sorry, I also asked a hard question.
no, Shreksmith, that was great.
No, thank you for telling me.
Yeah.
So the context I was saying is that by labeling things as attachment, as craving or aversion, you can almost put every experience into, is my mind being drawn towards it or pushed away from it? And if you have a very good response to that, anytime you see your mind doing one of those things, and you pull out this awesome response, boom, you've got a way of like making things better in every situation. Similarly, some people will try and see whenever their mind expects things to be different than what is. And so anytime they see an expectation, they're like, okay, that is not my mind being in reality. I'm going to be in reality. Or attachment. Anytime your mind wants something to be a certain way when it's already changed, you're like holding on to the past. which isn't real. This feeling of letting go of attachment. And so last week we were looking at great ways of dealing with attachment and expectation. So now, Shreximus, you've asked about being aware of craving and aversion. So what can we do instead? Earlier, I'm not sure if you'd arrived yet, we were talking about having your idea of a mindful mind be so wonderful that it would always win in the tug of war. So if your idea of peace or calm or ease is so beautiful that when you see yourself craving something, and instead you can remind yourself, I have all the satisfaction inside of me. That could be the antidote to craving. Or you have aversion. There's some situation that you wish this wasn't happening. There's peace inside me. I can be totally okay while this is happening. Just bringing your attention into that alternative. It sounds like you're already aware of that. I'm just encouraging you to imagine that you can get into that alternative so much more beautifully, that it's inviting, that it's lovely. And actually, now I say it, imagine if you just always were just stepping into your mindful, enlightened mind. How beautiful the experience of life would be. And if every day you take a few breaths and imagine yourself having this tranquility all the time, then in the situations where you notice the other things and you step into it, you've labeled that's aversion. Now I can be present with it. You labeled that's craving. Okay, I see that's craving. Now I just get to choose, what do I actually choose to do? Making that idea of your aware, mindful self strong and beautiful and inviting. You may notice also you said and I said some attitudes to respond to aversion and to craving. So making those attitudes strong and combining them with the really good feeling of mindfulness and awareness. It sounds like you're very much on the path to that. And Rainy, I want to also say something in response to what you said. So you were saying that your mind's like, come on, you should be enjoying the food more. I would suggest
like be more mindful, yeah.
Yeah. So I would suggest that you practice in a tone of voice in your mind of like, I'd like to enjoy this more mindfully. And just keep saying it to yourself and practicing it in a way that sounds good and in a way that feels good.
What should I say? What should I do?
Well, you were saying, I should be doing this. And the tone of your voice was like, rah. So perhaps you could practice, I'd like to do this. And notice I intentionally made the tone in my voice sound really sweet. Yeah, I'd like to enjoy this.
Yeah, that patience with yourself. To know that you're doing the best that you can.
So yeah, not only do I want to emphasize, Rainy, for you to practice making these ideas feel good for you, by literally just changing the tone of your thought, and maybe changing the words from I should to I'd like to. So, practicing it being nice, but also the thing of, I should do that, and that is also an expectation. Like, it's you thinking it should be a certain way. So you can also notice whenever you're telling yourself something should be a certain way, of just saying, hey, I'm going to be present with what is right now. Present with what is right now. And now I pick nicely, what do I want to do? So Shreximus, you mentioned craving and aversion. I also made reference to how that's a skill, like noticing when something an attachment or an expectation. There are other mental tools that we can have, that you can label something a certain way and then be really good at responding to a whole category of stuff. I know Creek's super good at the mental tool of impermanence. Stuff's just changing all the time. So I'm just going to cherish this present moment.
Yeah, I'm very not good at that yet. I'm not good at that yet.
Ah,
But it
see, you
sounds
just
like you're
hit
talking about
impermanence on the
almost
head.
Yes.
I'm not hit it yet. You just, there you go. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I also
Yeah,
want to...
that-
I can add to that is when you say I'm not good at that, you can always reframe it as like, oh, I'm going to imagine being good at that. I'm going to start practicing being good at that.
Ah.
But yeah, my point was there are great tools that can help with whole categories of things in our mind. And Shrexamus, I'm so glad you've gotten really good at noticing aversion and craving and rehearsing what it would be like to respond really well. I'm seeing an aversion. I have this peace inside myself that can handle this situation. That might be perfectly satisfying to imagine that, or you could come up with one that's even better for yourself, and then practice that awesome response that anytime you see aversion, boom, here's my awesome response. And imagine
Interesting.
being...
So
I was going to say, imagine being
would you
really good at that
Okay.
reaction. Imagine that it feels
Okay.
great. Yeah. So what are you going to say?
So would you call that, in other words, kind of like a fake it till you make it? Like, what if instead of my usual response of just pain or going into, oh, I wish it was this, or I wish this wasn't happening, what if I was like someone who didn't do that? Is that kind of what you're saying? 'Cause that's an
Almost.
interesting thing to cultivate. Almost? Okay.
If you remember earlier, I was saying like the difference between two people doing the same kind of meditation can get really different results. Like what you actually practice makes a difference. So if you're practicing, I'm going to fake it till I make it, and on the inside you're still thinking, I've got this thing, but I'm going to act differently, it might
Okay.
work. It might work, but you might also be
Right.
practicing So what I'm actually suggesting is you imagine your whole self having this other reaction. You know, there's some part of you, there really is some part of you that can be totally at peace. So more so I'm telling you to find that part, or imagine that part, practice that part, and come from that part. It's subtly different to fake it till you make it, and you'll get different results.
So you're locating
Are
a
you
part of
saying-
yourself. You're
Locating,
a part of yourself that
practicing,
is okay
creating,
already. Okay.
acting it, but
To
acting
frame
it
the
in a way
problem
that
from,
it's
like,
through your
the
whole self.
solution itself.
Lemon?
Oh, I'm sorry. To frame from the solution, like instead of the ground up, you're coming from the solution and then kind of breaking it downwards,
Yeah.
like that. That's how you're thinking of the answer. Okay.
To go back to a really not subtle example, when I used to be super shy and awkward everywhere, I could have gone to parties and just acted really cool, and then on the inside being like, maybe I'll be cool, maybe I'm still a nerd. And for some people that works, but for some people they get really good at acting cool, and then on the inside they're like, oh, no one loves me. So what I actually did is every day I imagined that I do feel good with people, and I actually do have nice conversations with people, and I actually feel relaxed around people and enjoy them. And so the difference is I practiced my whole self having this change, not just one part of me. It's a subtle difference, but it's a difference.
This is probably a larger question, and if you just want to point me in the direction of maybe materials I can look at myself, that's fine. But how do you practice something like that kind of response?
So I wrote
Because so
on.
far I've been going through life with the assumption that responses are kind of, you just get them, you don't get to decide.
Yeah, a lot of our responses are like that. They've been pushed on us by stuff that people said to us, or our brain kind of randomly made it through our causes and conditions. But we can practice other responses. So you actually wrote to me this week about brain programming. So this is I'm glad you asked. So I wrote on a little card, I feel calm around everybody. I have a really good time with. This is totally not how I was at the time, Rainy. I just wrote down what I wanted to practice, what I wanted to become. And maybe it was the exact opposite of what I was at the time. But hey, this is what I'm choosing to practice. This is what my real self or some good part of me is. So I'm going to make this part win. So I feel good around people. I like people. So we like each other. I have a good time. And every day I read it a few times. I'd say it. I'd make the tone of my voice feel it. And yeah, to start saying that, hey, I'm cool and everybody loves me, when I'd spent the last few years thinking everybody hates me, I suck. That was hard to do. But so for the first few days, I'd just say it, and maybe a little bit by little bit it would sound a bit better. But a week in, I was like, hey, yeah, I do feel good around people. And maybe it was just in my imagination. Maybe I hadn't actually started doing it yet, but I was able to imagine it and feel what it'd be like. And then I'd feel it more. And then, so I'd be saying it to myself a few times, trying to make the tone of my voice feel it. And I'd also imagine it. Hey, I walk up to a crowd of people and I'm like, hey, hi guys. And I'd imagine having a good time. I'd literally say it, start to feel it, start to visualize it, and imagine it. And I'd practice it with my words and my feelings and with my visual imagination, see myself doing it. I'd practice it in my body. How does it feel to be around people? I mean, how many people, when they think about socializing, practice their body doing this? Instead, I practiced my body feeling good. And I'd practice the words and the attitudes. And I'd go through, say it to myself, and visualize it many times a day.
Like an internal virtual reality subnet.
100% yes. As much as vividly as possible,
But
I'd go
I didn't
and
follow.
I'd practice it and I'd live it. Rainy, what did you say?
You're talking some 200 IQ stuff.
Yeah, I shared this idea with one of
Like
my
a spider web.
circles of friends, and they said this was some Harry Potter level brain magic. So, and you now all have those powers if you choose
Yeah, I think
to.
we've been blessed with some beautiful minds in here, but I think I would love to hear even more perspective to have input. Everyone, I just noticed we're actually over time. Ekis has just said good night. Thanks for the meditation, the insights. There's love hearts and stuff from everybody on the thread. I am going to guide a very quick closing meditation that includes our dedication. And then for those of you who are here,
Alright.
we're going to go out and socialize, talk about anything and everything mindfully, and help the discussions we've had, bring them into our way of thinking and talking. And for those of you on the live stream, please enjoy this last meditation and please share this video with your friends. So
Yeah.
just
Hope
a
I
quick
didn't
meditation.
help everyone with my rambling.
Oh no, Rainy, we really appreciate that you helped us look at the details and how to overcome the difficulties. So everybody, pull your shoulders up and back and then let them relax. Close the eyes, take a deep, strong breath. And just remember that this session, giving yourself a gift, practicing awareness, kindness to yourself, patience to yourself. Perhaps you heard some ideas or practices that might change your life. Perhaps you noticed some thoughts or habits that you've decided to stop practicing. You can start practicing something else. Maybe the
I'm a hot
knowledge that you
mess.
can do that is enlightening, inspiring. Maybe you could
Well,
imagine a world.
I do appreciate the advice. So yeah.
Maybe you could imagine having such gratitude for the wisdom that's all around us. Or maybe you could imagine really focusing on the stuff that seems to work the most beautifully, the most easily, the most powerfully. Maybe you could imagine a world where everybody focuses on ease and supporting one another and choosing and practicing the mindsets that are most straightforward, helpful, and simple. A world where we're full of love, full of strength, full of ease. So let's take a couple of deep, powerful breaths as you just bring in from whatever this meditation you'd like to remind yourself of. And as we leave the meditation hall, I invite you to bow to the enlightened being. Maybe find the enlightened being within yourself and honor it. Or maybe imagine the enlightened being that everyone in the world will become. Or maybe think of those superheroes or the most enlightened beings that you can imagine and just honor them, respect them, think of their mindset and cultivate their mindset.